Welcome to Daylight Studios here in Boulder, Colorado. I'm here to do another training program, so thanks for stopping by. My name is Mario Jannatpour, and I'm a realtor with RE/MAX Alliance in Louisville, Colorado. I'm the author of the book, The Honest Real Estate Agent. And the book has been selling really well on Amazon. And I know a lot of you that are watching these training programs have bought the book. So I want to thank you. Thank you for your support, and thank you for all of the feedback that I've been getting. So hopefully you'll find these training programs as helpful as you found the book. The name of this training program that I'm going to do right now is What Customers Want and Expect from You. This is something I'm really excited about to do because I think this is the heart of being a successful real estate agent. And this is some of the best advice I can give to you, especially when you're starting out and for those of you that are progressing in your careers. So what do your customers want and expect from you? So number one is honesty. And that's, I talk about it in my book. And if you look at a lot of the surveys that are done out there, talking about what do consumers want from real estate agents is honesty. Our profession has taken a beating in the last 10 years. All the things that happened in the early to mid 2000s, real estate agents are culpable. We were a part of that with all of the things going on with inflating values, working with appraisers, working with builders. A lot of real estate agents were guilty. So our profession has taken a beating. Maybe not as bad as the legal profession, lawyers, but who knows? I don't know. But you want to be honest. And a lot of people say, be honest. Of course you want to be honest. But what I'm saying is there's different levels of being honest. Number one, you want to be honest as a person in terms of your day-to-day, what you're doing. But when I'm talking about being honest as a realtor, as a real estate agent, you have to tell your clients the truth about situations. And a lot of times what happens is when we're working with our client, with our buyer, with our seller, and they ask us a question, we've always got this kind of thing going on in our head. Should I tell them? Should I tell them? If I tell them this, the deal is going to fall apart. I don't want the deal to fall apart. So you've always got this thing going on in the back of your head where you don't want the deal to fall apart based on what you say. So then you're thinking, what should I say? What should I say? And you kind of get locked up. My advice, and this is what customers want, is always be honest. Just tell them the truth. Let them decide. You shouldn't be deciding on what you should tell them and not tell them, because eventually it's going to come out in the long run. So always be honest, always be forthright, and just tell them what you know and tell them anything related to the situation. Is that concrete heaving in the driveway, is that significant? I have to tell them if it's an issue. I see the concrete breaking up in the basement, right? What we see in the driveway is different than what we see in the basement. If we see some significant heaving and shifting, the concrete moving, we have that here in Colorado because we have the bentonite in the soil, so we have expansive soils. So if we see that as a real estate agent, we know it's an issue. So if you try to hide it from your client, oh, it's no big deal. All the houses in the neighborhood, they have that. That's not going to fly. I mean, I was out with my clients a couple weeks ago and we saw a house that had some heaving in the basement and it was in a structural wood floor. And even the structural wood floor had heaved up and was moving. So I could definitely tell there was some significant movement going on there. And that is always going to stay with the property. So you just be honest. You don't have to embellish. You don't have to, create the end of the world scenario about things. Just tell them, yeah, it is an issue. And then if they need more information about it, you can try to find it through an inspector, structural engineer, contractor, or a lot of times the best information is to go back to the listing agent, and the listing agent will get it from the seller and provide you what you need to know. You have to be strong. You have to have conviction to be honest with your clients all the time. And like I said, the wheels are always turning in the back of your head because you want to keep that deal intact. And you know if you say something, the deal's going to fall apart. Well, that's fine. It's better that it falls apart now, and then rather than try to hide it, then it comes out after the fact, and then the deal falls apart 2 weeks later. Don't worry about it. It's not your responsibility. Always be honest. And that was one of the things I enjoyed about writing my book, The Honest Real Estate Agent. When I did the research, I did research with consumers out there, asking them what was important to them in their real estate agent. Number one was honesty. Everybody wants somebody that's honest, and you do too. So that's number one. Number two, what your customers expect and want from you is expertise. They want a realtor who is an expert, not just somebody who is average, not somebody who's just, basic level competence. Nowadays, they want somebody who is an expert in their area of need in terms of the buyer or the seller. So, for example, I sometimes will get people come to me and say, can you help me? I'm looking in an area of Denver like Highlands Ranch, which is way down south, probably about 30, 45-minute drive from where I am. I don't know that market. I don't know that area. They want to buy a house maybe for $500,000, but I don't know the area. So my philosophy is that I'll just refer them to another realtor down in Highlands Ranch that works that area, that knows that market. I want to know more about the situation than my client. If my client knows more than me, then like I talk about the respect factor, they're not going to respect me as much because I'm not adding as much value to them because I'm not an expert in where they're looking. So I always want to be an expert. So expertise in the geography, in your market. You need to be an expert in contracts, understanding all the contracts related to a real estate transaction. From all the disclosures, the buyer agency, the listing agreement, everything on the front end, all the disclosures. You need to be an expert in the contract, the actual contract to buy and sell. I've been in the business now 10 years. Each year that contract gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So you need to be going to the contract classes, the update classes, to really know the contract inside and out and how it relates to the transaction, not just the legalese, but understand the application. The office that you work in, a lot of the offices that you work in, they'll have ongoing training and sessions talking about the contracts. You need to be an expert in negotiation, negotiating your commission, negotiating your fees, negotiating contracts, negotiating inspections. Inspections now are a huge deal. It didn't used to be that way when I first started 10 years ago. People would be like, okay, I could live with that, I could live with this. Nowadays, buyers, they nitpick everything. So when you're a listing agent, you have to be pre-selling, pre-negotiating to the inspection. Set the expectation with your seller, what's going to happen. Set the expectation with the buyer as best you can in terms of what they can ask for, what they shouldn't ask for. You'll get a client, they'll just say, oh, it's no big deal, we'll just live with it. Like, great, that's fine, but it's their decision. You need to be an expert in the whole buy-sell process. You need to be an expert in all the different parties that are involved in the transaction, working with the lenders, the inspectors, the appraisers, the title representatives. People just don't want average. They want and expect the best for them when they're buying or selling their house. This is the biggest financial transaction that people make in their lives. They're buying a $600,000 home. That's a lot of money. They're buying a $200,000 home, condo. It's their first first purchase. It's a lot of money to them. So expertise. You will need to be an expert. Number three, what they expect from you. They want you to care about them. They want you to look out for their best interest. They want a realtor that is focused on helping them and not a realtor who's just focused on getting a commission, picking up a paycheck. When you care about your customers, when you care about your clients, that feeling will be transmitted and you'll develop a good relationship with them, and they will remember that after the fact, and that's what's going to get you your referrals, and that's what's going to get you your repeat business. So you need to care about them as people. Care about them in terms of the house that they're going to buy, care about them in terms of trying to help them sell their house. And I always mention the one book that I talk about, The 1 Minute Salesperson, helping people get what they want and need. It's a great book. You need to read it. My philosophy is what I tell my clients is I say, I work for you. Look at me as your employee. I'm working for you to help you get what you want and need. I'm going to tell you things that you don't want to hear sometimes, but it's my job to tell you that. So I look at it where I'm working for them, and I always want my customers to be directing me on what they need, what they want in terms of working through the transaction, working through the process. So I'm working for them. Number 4, what they want from you is they want a good listener. This is Sales 101. You need to listen to what your customers want and need. A lot of times, they just want to talk. They want to tell their story. They want to talk about their situation. I'll sit down with, in a listing presentation, talking to people about selling their house. It's emotional. I mean, I had a listing I had a couple years ago, and they were downsizing. And they were downsizing due to financial pressures that they were feeling, kids going to college. So they had to sell their family home that they lived in for like, I don't know, 12, 13 years, maybe longer. But they were selling it before they wanted to really sell it. But they had to tell that story to me, and I had to listen to them. And I had to be sensitive to that throughout the whole transaction. And I never forget that closing. I did a good job. I helped them sell their house, and everything worked out smooth. But we got to the closing, and the wife, she broke down crying, at the closing table because she was selling her family house. Her kids had grown up there, and it was just a very emotional thing. So with me listening to them up front, understanding that, I was very sensitive to that. So people want to be heard, and you have to listen to them. What we can always do, the best thing that we can do when we're meeting with our clients is ask questions. Ask pertinent questions that will give us information about their motivation. We want to find out why they need to sell the house. We need to find out why they need to buy a house. What are the motivating factors? What's driving it? So you want to be asking questions and listen. What a lot of inexperienced salespeople, inexperienced realtors will do, they get in front of a client for the first time, and what do? They get nervous. They don't know what to do. So what do? They talk. They talk, they blab, blah, blah, blah. They just keep going on and on. They're talking about, their kids, they're talking about this, they're just talking and talking and talking. And then what happens is that the customer is sitting there, and the customer wants to tell their story, but then the realtor is just talking about all these things related to the sale, talking about inspections, talking about houses, talking about this, and the realtor thinks they're doing a good job because they're talking about all this stuff, but they're not asking questions, and they're not listening. And then they're not making that connection. Listening, truly listening to people is the best way to make a connection when you meet them the first time. So you always want to make sure that you're listening. Silence, right? When you hear that silence, what do you want to do? You want to talk, right? How are you today? See, that silence, it makes you feel uncomfortable, right? And what do you do if you ask somebody a question and they're slow to respond? We want to jump in, right? So you just got to sit back, you got to relax, use the power of silence, let them talk. Number 5, what your customers want, they want a hard worker. They want somebody who's going to work for them day and night. And that's the truth. They want somebody to work hard to sell their house. They want somebody there, putting in the flyers in the house, following up all the showings, doing the marketing. If you got a buyer, they want you to show them all the properties. They don't want to hear any excuses. They want a realtor who's going to work hard for them because they feel that you don't work hard. They feel, the perception of realtors is that, they're just out playing golf and, they never answer the phone and, they're doing this or doing that. They're just kind of hanging out. They don't answer my email. So the perception that we have in our industry going in is against us. The public does not think that we work hard for the money that we make. They think, oh, it's really easy. All you got to do is show a few houses and, have a few people show up and boom, you make 3%, $600,000, $18,000, piece of cake, right? Well, it's not that easy, as you'll see as you get into it. It is a lot of hard work, but you want to make an impression to your customer that you are going to work hard, you are going to help them from beginning to end, and you're going to work evenings, you're going to work weekends. So for those of you that are coming out of the Monday through Friday 9 to 5 environment, that's not going to fly in real estate. We're going to be working evenings and we're going to be working weekends. I work 7 days a week, I work weekends. I had like 3 weekends in a row I was working every hour of that weekend. This last weekend I didn't work, I was at home, catching up on all the stuff. Evenings, I'm working on the evenings. So you get used to it as you progress. The nice thing I say is that I don't have the Sunday night blues, right? A lot of people that work the Monday through Friday job, Sunday night, they're, oh, I don't want to go back to work Monday. So we don't have that issue because we're working every day. What customers want from you, number 6, is they want a realtor who has a good reputation. I think this is really important. You want to have a good reputation in the community. Have a reputation for getting deals done. Have a reputation for working well with listings, working well with buyers. You want to have a reputation with working well with other agents. That reputation will carry you a long way when you're working with your clients and working with other realtors. You don't want to have a reputation of being a hothead. You don't want to have a reputation of being somebody who always drops the ball. You don't want to have a reputation of somebody who does a lot of bait and switch. You don't want to have a reputation of somebody who just doesn't work hard. You want to have a good reputation because that is what your clients are looking for, especially when they're selling a house. If you look at some of the surveys out there, reputation of the listing agent is very important to home sellers, so keep that in mind. Number 7, what they're looking for is you need to be able to provide real estate contacts, number 7. So provide real estate contacts. So what I mean by this is that you need to be able to have a network of service people, consultants, people in the business that you can refer out to your clients. So lenders, home inspectors, title people, structural engineers, building contractors, heating contractors, plumbing people, landscaping people, tree people for tree diseases, concrete shifting, mud jackers. It's called mud jacking. They lift up the concrete pads. So there's a lot of things that you need to be able to refer out to your clients. And if you don't have that, you could just say, hey, let me find out, ask other agents in your office, ask your managing broker, try to get people that you know that do a good job in the community. That's part of our value to our clients. I know one of my customers this year, she made a comment to me about how she really appreciated the fact that every time they ran into something, I had contacts available to refer to them to help them through the situations, issues that we're running into. And you never know, things always come up. So it's always good to have kind of a network of people ready to be able to refer out to your clients. Number 8, for what your customers want and expect from you is they enjoy being with you. I'm kind of going ahead of myself all the time. Number 8, enjoy being with you. So what they want is a realtor where they can enjoy their time spent with you. I talk about, the whole like and trust factor. That is important. It's not the most important thing nowadays. The expertise, I feel, is really important. But I think this process, when we're helping our customers, it can be lengthy. I just had a closing a month ago, and I met my clients at a restaurant last year, and they were repeat customers. And the whole process took over a year to help them buy a new house and to help them sell their existing house. And it always makes our job a lot easier, a lot simpler when the clients that we're working with are people that we get along well with and we enjoy their company. It makes it a little bit harder if it's contentious and things are not going smoothly and people are complaining and this, that, and the other. That makes our job a little bit harder. But if we're always trying to make it a point to make that time spent well together, I think that is going to be really good for your clients. One of my philosophies, I say, create a positive real estate experience. So what that is that the time that they spend with you at the end of the transaction, when they remember how they feel about you, they remember how they feel about the experience. So when it's a positive real estate experience, then they will feel good about you. So I always try to make things as positive as possible when we're going through things, lighten it up a little bit, have a little fun, don't be so serious, don't be so glum, don't be so focused on, do you like this house? Do you want to make an offer on it? Let's go back to my office and make an offer on it. I'm never closing on my clients. They close themselves. We look at a bunch of houses, and a lot of times when we're looking at houses, I know the house that they're going to end up buying, and I know based on how they view the house, what they're talking about, how they feel about it. And a lot of times I say, hey, that's the one. I know they're going to go for it. And I don't have to say that. I don't have to ask them, what do you think of that house? What do you think of the living room? What do you think? How do you think your furniture will look here? I don't do any of that kind of stuff. You just kind of let them have their space, have their time. I point out the pluses and minuses, and that's the easiest thing to do, so that way you're not in their face all the time. Number 9, available anytime. So it's a 24/7 job nowadays. So when we're working with our customers, we got to be available via phone, via email, via text, via Facebook, via Twitter, Google+, whatever it is, right? People are going to communicate to you, and they're going to expect you to follow up. So it is a 24/7 job nowadays. So you need to be available anytime. When your customer calls on the phone, like I program all my cell phones, as soon as I get a number in, I'll put their name in. So that way when I see it, I say, oh, Bob Sacamano. Bob's calling me. I got to talk to Bob. Say, hey, Bob. So I always take that call. If a customer calls and I'm in the middle of something, I'll just say, hey, Bob, I'm sorry. I'm out with the client right now. Let me buzz you back. Or if it's something quick, let's talk about it. So always take that phone call. That's one of the things that people hate most about real estate agents, is that we're never available via the phone. It's always rolling to voicemail. And then if somebody gives you a text, then you're not responding to that text. So you always want to be available. The biggest hurdle, like I mentioned before in our process, is the inspection process and the resolution. So a lot of these are these negotiations go into the evening, into the late hours. So you want to be prepared when you're negotiating an inspection to make sure that you're going to be available that night up until 11 o'clock. And if you want to go to bed early, or you want to go see a movie, or go watch a sporting event, or whatever, go watch your kids, play, when you're setting that contract up front, you need to take note of the inspection resolution deadline. What I've seen some agents do now is they will put a time in for when that inspection resolution deadline is. So rather than having it go to midnight, they'll state that it needs to be done by 8 p.m., whatever time zone you're in. I think that's a good strategy, because what happens is the buyers and sellers, they purposely let that inspection resolution deadline go to the last hour, because they feel they can get the best deal by just letting it drag on. But that affects you, because it's not only it's your time, in the evening or something to do that, but it's also sometimes hard to get everybody to sign off on everything. Like I use an electronic signature program. I use DocuSign, and I like DocuSign. It does a good job. So I can do that via email. But sometimes the clients that you're working with, they don't have access to email where they're at. They might be traveling, whatever. So be prepared for that. But you want to be available anytime when you're helping your customers. Okay, number 10, you want to be calm under fire. This is important because the transaction, what's going on with your buyers and sellers can be very stressful. It's a very emotional transaction to them if they're selling their house, if they're buying a house. And I'm talking about clients where, there's going to be owner occupied or they've been living in it, not talking about investor buyers. But even it works for investors as well. You want to be calm under fire. You don't want to let your emotions get in the middle of a deal. It doesn't matter what you think or you feel as the real estate agent. Your feelings are insignificant. So you don't want to get upset, you don't want to get angry, and you don't want to let any of those feelings permeate the deal. Because like I said, if you're helping your buyer and seller, they're already going through a lot of stress. It's very emotional for them. So you want to be always even keel. You always want to be letting them know everything's going to be okay. You don't want to get in a fight with another real estate agent, because a lot of times they will get emotional, and that makes it hard. So if you're dealing with an emotional agent on the other end who's kind of getting angry and purposely trying to get you upset, you got to watch out for that. I mean, I had that happen this summer where I was representing a buyer, and my buyer had gone in first on the offer, and the seller accepted my buyer's offer for a little bit less than the purchase price, about $12,000 less. It was a $600,000 home. So my buyer went in $12,000 less than the list price. Seller accepted it. And then as we progressed along in the process and we got to the inspection, what happened is that the seller had gotten another offer and had gotten a full price offer. So the seller was not as motivated to keep the transaction, the deal intact with my buyer. So what this agent was doing, this other agent was purposely trying to agitate me and was purposely trying to agitate my clients. And I kind of caught on to the game, what was going on. So a lot of the stuff that he was trying to pass on to my clients to get my clients upset, I just didn't pass on because I just knew what their strategy was and I didn't want my clients to get upset. And it wasn't anything material, so I wasn't withholding any information. I was just protecting my client because I didn't want them to get upset because I kind of knew what was going on. So when we submitted our inspection, the items that my buyer wanted fixed, the seller just said, we will do nothing. They just rejected all the inspection items. So I knew that their strategy was that they wanted this deal to fall apart so they can get the other one. So like I said, I remained calm. So I didn't let that other agent get my goat because he was doing everything in his power, to get me to get all riled up, to get angry, to start jumping up and down and try to blow up the deal. But I was thinking rationally, not emotionally, and I was thinking about what was best for my client because it didn't matter if I got upset or if I got angry. So keep that in mind when you're working with other agents. A lot of times they'll try to get you upset. Always remain calm under fire. I had a closing a few months ago, and I remember the wife, she told me afterwards, she said, I really appreciated how calm you were during the process. I think she even wrote it into her testimonial talking about how I helped them. Because we had a couple challenging sale on their end, and we went through a couple contracts to buy their new house. And I always remained calm, and she really appreciated that. So that worked out well. Number 11, always thinking ahead. Always think ahead about where the transaction is headed. Always be thinking ahead strategically. Your customers want you to do that for them because a professional realtor is always thinking about the next step. What is going to happen? So when you're thinking about the deal, thinking about the transaction, you always want to be looking forward. You don't want to be looking backward, and you don't want to get caught up too much in the details. Strategic thinking, that's what's going to set you apart as a realtor, especially when you're negotiating, especially when you're going through the listing process. What happens? You have a listing, you have a contract, and then it falls out of contract. You put it back on the market. What is going to be the perception of that listing going forward? So you need to be prepared. You need to set the expectation for your clients. A lot of what we do as realtors is expectation management. We are managing the expectations of our clients. So if we are setting inappropriate expectations, that is going to hurt us in the long run. So we always want to be setting expectations that we know are going to happen the way we expect them to happen. So if we're setting bad expectations, that's going to kill us, and it's going to make us look bad. And if other people are setting inappropriate expectations, like a lender steps in and says something, or home inspector says something, you have to reset it. Setting the appropriate expectation is really important to what we do as real estate agents. Number 12 is what your customers want from you and expect from you. They want somebody who has a positive mindset. You want to be positive, not the cheery, it's a great day kind of thing. You want to be positive about where things are headed in terms of how the transaction is going to end up. One of my mantras is that I always tell my clients is I say, don't worry, it's going to work out. It always works out in the end, and it does. And if you keep saying that, your client is going to feel good, because the days of finding that house the first time, writing a contract, getting under contract and closing on one offer, those days are gone. It's really different right now. The days of having a listing, putting it on the market, first week, 10 offers and getting it sold. It happens. I've had that happen a few times this year, but you have to be prepared for the situations where it's going to take a long time, but you want to stay positive and you want to be able to transmit that positive feeling to your clients. I like that movie, Shakespeare's in Love. And if you remember the Jeffrey Rush character, he was like I think the play owner or something, the manager. So somebody asks him, what do we do? What do we do? The whole world is falling, right? And he says, nothing. Strangely enough, it all turns out well. And the guy says, how? And then Jeffrey Rush's character says, I don't know. It's a mystery. And it's true. And that's how it is for us. It will always turn out well in the end, because whatever house our buyers buy, that's the house that they really want, they really like. So that's going to be very, they're going to feel good about it. So it always works out in the end. Your clients are stressed, so just be positive. It's going to help them. So that was kind of interesting. Like I said, the other lady said about how her deals fell apart, but I kept positive. So that worked out. So number 13, organization, organized. Your clients want a realtor who is organized. Organization is really important to being a professional realtor. There's so many things that we have to organize, from the listings, working with our buyers, when you're doing the listings, coordinating the showings, making sure everything is going smooth, having the house ready to sell, having all the disclosures ready, being organized on the front end, all the marketing information, the marketing programs that you do. Everything has to be organized, and it's your responsibility. The buck stops with you. So you have to be a detailed, oriented person to make sure that you're following up on all the organization little tidbits. When you're working with your buyers, you need to be organized. So a lot of times when I take my buyers out, we'll look at, I've had people come in from out of state, we look at 10, 15 properties, 2-3 days ahead of time. I'm going through the MLS, I'm working with my buyer, going through the listings that we're going to see, and then I, get everything scheduled. I have the whole tour set up. I have to call everything in, and I have to be prepared, reviewing each house. Some of the houses I've seen, which is good, but some other ones I don't. And then if it's in an area that I don't know the neighborhood as well, then I need to kind of do some map questing, look at Google Maps. We have a city here in in Colorado, Westminster, and Westminster is crazy. You have these streets where you have 107th Avenue, 107th Way, 107th Loop, 107th Street, and it's just really confusing. So I get these listings and I'm going out to 104th Way, 105th Way, and I think I know where it is, but I don't. So you need to be able to do it. And I've got a smartphone, I've got my Google Maps app on it, and that works pretty well. But you want to be prepared. So when I take buyers, I will print out all the sheets of the properties that we're going to look at. I'll organize them in the order that we're going to view all the houses, and then I'll put them on a clipboard, give them a pen, and then that's theirs to use for the day. So they have the clipboard, they've got the houses on it, and what I tell them to do, I say make notes. Because if we're looking at 10 to 12 houses in a day, all the houses are going to run together. And I always advise them to try to remember one distinguishing feature about the house that will kind of set it apart. This is the one that has the basement with the pool table. This is the one that has the basement with the shuffleboard. This is the one that has the wine cellar. This is the one that has the old roof, whatever it is. But make sure they take notes, because it's important for them to take the notes, and then they're doing it on each house. And then at the end of the home buying tour, you take them out. They keep all the sheets. You get your clipboard back. You get your pen back. They can keep it if they want, but get your clipboard back. And then you do that every time. Every time you take people out, you got all the sheets printed out, everything prepared. The other thing that you can do when you're viewing the houses is that if you're looking at houses and you've been helping a buyer for a long time, and maybe you're not looking at 10 to 12 houses, maybe some agents that go preview it first to get their feet wet to understand it. What I will do sometimes, I want to go in and look at the seller's property disclosure to see if there's any red flags, any issues I need to be aware of before we look at the house, because that way we can view that situation when we're there. Like if they said there was a water leak in the basement 5 years ago, they corrected it. I want to be very sensitive to that. So when I'm in the basement, I want to take a look at that and see if there's any residual damage, any issues related to that. And then the home inspector will still review that too. Now, the other thing that you want to be prepared when you're helping your clients in terms of organization is all of the paperwork. So a lot of times when I'm writing an offer, I will get as much information I can from my buyers up front so I can prepare a lot of the contract ahead of time. So I'll get their legal names, I'll get a sense of the dates in terms of do they have any travel in the next 30 to 45 days, do they have anything going on that I need to be aware of, and then I'll fill out 80 to 90% of the contract ahead of time. And then when we sit down to review what they want to do, then we're talking about price, talking about terms, and then what I can then do is take the remaining 15 to 20%, plug it into my computer, and then print it out. So what I do is that I get all this information ahead of time so I can print it out there and just do it in a short period of time. So if I'm not organized and I'm not getting this from my client ahead of time, and I have to fill out the entire contract while they're sitting and waiting, 30 minutes or so. The other part of it too is I will be prepared. I'll have all the disclosures printed out and ready for them ahead of time. So when I'm filling out the balance of the contract, then they can go ahead and sign off on the property disclosure, square footage disclosure, all those kind of things. So just be organized. And same thing with the listing. When you're helping your sellers, you're going out for the meetings, you have all the information you need, have all the CMAs, have all the comps. When they come in, they're going to sign the listing agreement or wherever you sign it, have all the disclosures ready, make sure they go through everything. You just want to be on top of the ball. And I think that's very important. You want to be organized. Because if you're not organized, you're always playing catch up. Number 14, what your customers want and expect from you is they want to work with a professional, somebody who is committed to their profession. And I talk about this a lot. You have to be a professional. You have to care about what you do. You want to take pride in your work. And by being a professional, it will reflect well on you when you're working with your clients. Always be a professional, but that's what customers want. They want to work with a professional. They don't want to work with somebody who just, is kind of flying by the seat of their pants and just kind of, winging it and this kind of thing. Be a professional. Number 15, they want a realtor who likes their job. So it's a little subjective here, but I still think it's important. How you feel about what you do is going to come through when you're working with your customers. So if you're passionate about your work, if you're passionate about helping people, that is going to be contagious, and people are going to catch on to that and they're going to appreciate it. I had a customer make a comment to me a couple weeks ago, just a brand new client, first-time buyers. They had a bad experience with another realtor. They found me online, saw my YouTube videos, and the lady, the wife said, I really love how you're so passionate about what you do. You're so passionate about your job. You're passionate about helping people. I like that. So when I'm passionate about what I do, you can see it comes through in my videos. It comes through when I'm helping my clients. So your clients, they want to work with somebody who enjoys their job. They don't want to work with somebody who's like, yeah, you want to write another offer? Okay, all right. What's that, right? You don't want to have that kind of attitude. You don't want to have that kind of mentality. You want to be passionate. And I'm not talking about being cheesy, rah-rah all the time. Just like, hey, I like what I do. I enjoy my job, and it comes through. Number 16 is assurance. So this is something that I feel really strongly about. So what our clients want and expect from us is they want reinforcement. They want justification for the decision they're making. So this is really pretty fascinating when you think about it. So remember years ago, internet was kind of getting cranked up. All the changes that were going on in the music industry, all the changes that we've seen happen in the newspaper industry, like locally here in Denver. We lost the Rocky Mountain News a few years ago. Excellent newspaper. Now we just have the Denver Post. All throughout the country, a lot of newspapers have gone out of business. Travel agents, the whole travel industry was completely turned upside down because of the internet. So remember in those early days, people were saying, oh, the internet is going to replace real estate agents. Realtors are not going to be needed. People can go online. They can look and see, what their house, what they want to buy. They can look at the pictures. They could just schedule, somebody to come show them the house. They can schedule with the seller. A seller, if they want to sell their house, they'll just put it online, right? Like an eBay kind of thing, Craigslist. People will come, they'll look at it. Oh, it's a great house, I'll buy it, right? Everybody was talking about that, 10 years ago. The reason real estate agents will not disappear and will not go away is because of my point right here, assurance. Our clients, they want to be sure that they're making the right decision. And when you're working with your clients and you've established a trusting relationship, you've been honest with them, and then you get down to the end of the transaction, what's going to happen is your customer is going to turn to you and say, hey, Mario, what do you think? They're going to ask you, what do you think? And what you say right then and there is going to show how professional you are. You just tell them what you think. And if you think what they're doing is the right thing, you just feed it back to them. And that's what I do. I say, yeah, this house, it has everything that you're looking for. You wanted to be close to the school. You wanted to have a house that had a big backyard. You wanted a house that had a walkout basement. You wanted a house that had a study. You wanted a house that had a nice kitchen. I just feed back everything that they say that they wanted when we first started working and that we've talked about during the process. And I just feed it back to them. And what happens is when I feed it back to them, they just say, yeah, you're right. But they appreciate the fact that I'm there to give them that reassurance there at the end. And the same thing is happening when you're dealing with listings. You're going through all the showings, you're going through the offers, the counter offers, and all that kind of stuff, and you get right down to it. Maybe it's at the inspection, right? You're coming down to the inspection, you've already agreed on the price, you're coming down to it, the seller's going to sign off on the inspection, and then they turn to you and say, what do you think? Should I do it? And then that's when you got to reassure them. You feed it back to them based on everything that you've talked about up until that point. You said, yeah, you wanted to sell the house for no less than this price. You wanted to have, a buyer that was going to live in the house. You didn't want an investor. You didn't want to have to give in so much on the inspection. You just feed it back to them. And that to me is being a professional salesperson. You just feed back what they said. You don't put your opinion into it, you feed back what they said, and as long as you feel strongly about it, you let them know. Now, this is the fine line, where if you get down to the end of it, and if they ask you, what do you think, like it's at the inspection, right? And you say, what do you think, should I do it? And then you should say, well, let's talk about this a little bit. Let's review where we're at, because maybe what the seller is agreeing to is not what he initially wanted to do. So you want to review that. And you could say, well, let's just review this. You wanted to sell it for a price at this point, but you're not selling it at that point. You wanted to have these items not come up at the inspection. Well, you're not doing what you wanted. Just want you to be sure that you're comfortable moving ahead with what you're doing. It's always good to do a check on your clients late in the deal, because you don't want them to come afterwards and say, I made the wrong decision. You talked me into this. You forced me into that. You never want to have that happen. What I always say, like with buyers, when we're looking at houses, I always say, I don't care what house you end up liking. I don't care what house you buy. It's your house. I want to help you buy the house that you want. I want to help you buy the house that fits you. It doesn't matter what I think. So always be sensitive to that. So this whole reassurance and justifying their decision is extremely powerful, and your clients will remember you for that. I had a client I was helping, and we were selling their house, and they were buying a new house, and we had a lot of hoops to jump through. And they were just really, really nervous about everything. And as soon as we got their house under contract, we had to go find the house that they were going to buy. And they just wanted to go immediately after we got their house under contract. And I kept saying, don't worry, we have time. It's going to be okay. And they said, well, we need to go. I said, it's going to be fine. So I had to keep reassuring them during that process that we were going to find the house, everything was going to be okay, because they were really kind of stressed out. So it was kind of funny. So remember that real estate agents were not going to go away, and I feel this is one of the areas where we add the most value to our clients, especially late in the deal. So let's just do a quick review here. When we're talking about buyers, what they want and expect from you, it's really pretty simple. We always want to kind of boil it down to the most simple. They want you to help them find the right property, find the property that they want. So as real estate agents, we have to help them find their property. Search the MLS, search multiple MLSs, use our network to try to find properties that are not online. Use our network to find properties that are going to be new listings, pocket listings, withdrawals. So we want to try to help our clients find the right property. Help them get a good deal. Help them get a deal that is what they want based on their expectations. Help them negotiate the price. Help them negotiate the terms that are best for them. It's really important when we're helping a buyer, not only the price, but to help negotiate all the terms, the closing dates, the inclusions, what's going to be negotiated in the inspection. what we want to do is the buyer help them through all the paperwork. A lot of the buyers now, they don't understand all the paperwork. So we have to help them. We have to educate them on the paperwork process, educate them on all the contracts, educate them on all the disclosures, educate them on all the ramifications, educate them on what's going on with the lender, educate them on the appraisal process, educate them on the whole title process. So it's our job to help them through all the paperwork because they look to us as the go-to person when it's related to all the paperwork. The sellers. So what do the sellers want from us when you boil it down? They want us to sell their house, right? They want a realtor who can follow through, sell their house, get them the price that they want. And this is one of the hard things that's challenging about our job nowadays. What the seller wants to get on their price of their house, and what the market says they're going to get, a lot of times there's a huge disconnect. I was meeting with a client the other day, and this client said they wanted to get this price. And based on the condition of the property, I'm telling him that he's going to get this price, so there's a pretty big gap there. So that is our job. We have to be realistic, but we have to try to help them get the best price to sell their house. The other thing when we're helping sellers is just negotiate all the terms, negotiate the process, and just be there during the whole process and get them to a successful closing. That is really important for a seller. Making sure that the buyer is going to follow through in everything that they said, the lender is going to follow through in everything that they said, and they're going to make it to a successful closing. That's really important. So those are the two things, right? Buyer, help them buy the house, find the right property. Seller, sell their house, negotiate the best terms. So focus on that, and then focus on all the other aspects that I've been talking about. So my last point here is don't give up. So I'm closing each training program talking about don't give up, and I think it's important for you not to give up. A lot of times you're going to run into situations where you're going to have challenges, you're going to have issues, your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend is going to say, are you doing the right thing? Is this really the right job for you? So always fight for yourself, stand up for yourself, and don't give up. The last little story I want to talk about in terms of your job is, in terms of don't give up. The great thing about being a real estate agent is that it's your job. You own it. Especially over time, as you build your business, you own that business. So even if the company that you're working for, if they were to go out of business, you could easily go ahead, take your license and go to another company, and then you have all your clients, your past clients and all your current clients. I have a really good friend, and he started at a job 8 months ago, and he's in high tech, and he was really excited about this job. And, go out to lunch with him, have dinner, and he would always be talking about what he had to do and all the things that were going on, and he was really excited about it. And then just a weekend or so ago, we were out together, a bunch of friends, and he told us on a Saturday that he was laid off from his job on that Friday. And he was really heartbroken, and I felt really bad. I felt really bad for him because he's a good friend of mine. He deserved better than that. He didn't deserve to be laid off because he was really working hard. He cared about the job. He was putting in, his heart and soul. And he just got laid off unexpectedly, 2-week notice, and then that's it. So I just totally thought that was terrible, and I felt bad. So as a real estate agent, we don't have to face that fact. We own our job. Nobody could fire us. We can always be working for ourselves as we progress in our careers. So think about that when it gets tough. And I really appreciate you listening to this video. Again, I appreciate all of you that are buying my books online, and I appreciate all the support I'm giving. But take my advice on what the customers want and expect from you, and you'll be successful. Thank you.